Welcome to Nightmare Echoes. Listen, scream, and embrace your horror obsession. In this episode, Steven is back to talk about the Blair Witch Project. Join us as we explore theories and answer the following questions. Did the actors help write the movie? How were these found footage tapes actually found? And are we supposed to like these characters? Next week on the podcast is Sam Raimi's cult classic, Army of Darkness. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Nightmare Echoes. I'm your host, Elazar. I'm joined again by co-host Steven. Steven, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? I'm excited to talk about Blair Witch Project with you today.
Yeah, I'm excited. I remember when it came out, I went to go see it. Either it was, if it wasn't release weekend, it was the next weekend. I went with a friend from work, which was a lot of fun because there was just so much news about this movie. Everybody on the internet, now the internet was really young at the time, and people weren't sure if this was real or not. It was presented as, we found these tapes, and for the family, we've edited it together in something watchable so we can let people know these people are missing. You can come watch it. If any information is there, please contact the authorities.
It was a total big deal. People thought it was a real thing. People thought these people were really missing, and there were so many people convinced that it was a true story.
Yeah, and they had the actors hide out for 6 months and not be anywhere, which is crazy because if this happened today, Twitter would find them in no time. People would go and say, oh, actually, I have footage here of her grocery shopping or whatever. But the internet was so new. It was a bunch of chat rooms, small little independent websites, nothing super big like it is.
Yeah, fake news travels too fast these days. So
Right, yeah.
Those people they're still missing, but the fake news would say that they're not.
Yeah, no, shut up. That's too funny. But yeah, even IMDb had them listed as missing, presumed dead, which is interesting, you know? Wow. So you look up information, you're like, well, maybe it is true. What the heck? So that's interesting. Well, I kind of want to talk about the development for a little bit. So Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez wanted to make some movies. They wanted to make horror films, and they felt like documentaries about paranormal phenomenon were scarier than most horror films. So they, with a couple other people, made Haxan Films, and then they just wrote a 35-page screenplay where the dialogue was all going to be improvised.
Now, they were film students?
They were film students,
yeah.
Right? And they put
didn't
out
have much money either.
Right. They did it really cheaply.
I think $60,000 is what I had read.
Right, but then
is the total budget.
Once they got backed, their budget went a lot higher. Like someone bought the movie for like $1 million. I'll go over this in a little bit.
Okay.
And the budget went up a lot bit. So they put out a casting call for people with strong
improvisational
people that can improvise really well. They got about 2,000 actors to apply. And Heather Donahue, the main woman in this movie, she said that in her casting call, she was told that the film would be completely improvised and it would be shot in a wooden location. And when she got there, the question they asked her in her interview was, you've served 7 years of a 9-year sentence. Why should we let you out on parole? How would you answer that? That seems like a hard question.
I mean, drawing a blank just thinking about it.
Yeah, I know. But it worked for her.
Yeah. Did she help at all with the writing of the...
No, she just... Well, it was all improvised, right? So a lot of lines. So
she was listed, and that's probably why.
Right. Because all three actors... So Joshua Leonard said he was hired mainly because he knew how to run a camera. And they needed someone that was really good at that. But yeah, the shooting took place over 8 days, started on October 23, 1997, and it was all in Maryland. With the exception of the interviews at the beginning of the film, the three actors shot all the footage. When they would wake up every morning, they would find film cans, and they would have their names, and they would give them inspiration or kind of what their goal was today. And so not every actor knew what the other actors were going to do. So they might tell Mike, okay, today I want you to just act crazy. The others are going to have to react to the way you're just cussing at the air because you're so pissed off all of a sudden. Just for an example, right? Like they just gave them different cues of what to do while the people were following close by. And then they actually had better tracking equipment so they really wouldn't get lost in the woods, even though it appears to be in the film like they did, which was interesting.
But they did have a map.
They did have a map. Yeah, until Mike kicked it in the water.
Oh, we can't get to that yet.
Yeah, we'll get there. Obviously, spoilers for the whole thing if you haven't seen it. It's a great movie. The three actors all used their real names. Heather Donahue later really regretted that She said it was hard on her to get other jobs later, and people didn't take her seriously because her name was this character in this horror movie. So she legally changed later in life.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Poor Heather.
Yeah. And in the end, they had 20 hours of footage, which got eventually cut down to the 81 minutes. And so then after they showed it at Sundance, at the premiere January 25th, 1999, Artisan Entertainment bought the distribution rights for $1.1 million. Because of that, they had more money to put into the film, and they ended up spending somewhere between $500,000 and $750,000 to finish the film. But it was great. Then we talked about this a little bit. The marketing had them all as missing. They actually were handing out posters at the film festivals, which had missing signs that said, like, hey, after watching this movie, if you happen to know any information, please contact the authorities. So they're handing out posters as if we're really worried about these people. We still haven't found them. And that spread word of mouth. It showed at a lot of colleges across the country before it finally had its theatrical debut, which was pretty crazy. And the filmmaker's trailer was leaked on the website Ain't It Cool News, and the film was screened at 40 different colleges across the United States.
Now, I'm an old guy,
Sure.
and I was in college when this came out, and I remember having a home camera that I spent a lot of money on as I wasn't making much.
Yeah.
And it was just, we loved making videos like this.
Yeah.
And one of my friends was a big fan of the Blair Witch Project. Now, I hadn't seen it, but we did try to mimic the style that they did. And
Sure.
I thought it was really cool. One of my favorite parts in the very beginning was when they were shopping for things. And Heather is looking at a bag of marshmallows and just zooms in. And she's like, soft marshmallows. We would do similar things like microwave popcorn. We'd zoom in. Oh, butter overdose.
That's
so
pretty
fun.
funny. So before the movie went to theaters, there was a documentary that was aired on TV called Curse of the Blair Witch. And it set up the whole thing to make America believe this was a real event that happened. So it came out as a documentary, and it was called The Curse of the Blair Witch. And on there they have several interviews. We have an interview from Heather's professor who talks about remembering when she submitted the idea to do a documentary for her film project on the legend of the Blair Witch. And he remembers not really liking the idea that they were going to have to go on this trip to do it. We have an interview with Joshua's girlfriend who remembers meeting Heather and not liking her. We have an interview with Michael's brother. I think he was the one that said in the interview that he's not sure he can actually watch the footage of his brother's last days. But if it helps people find evidence to help find his brother, he's glad it's there.
So much build up to this.
Before the movie even came out.
Yeah.
Right? Then in the documentary they have
people believe.
They have what look like real news clips from Channel 8 News and stuff like that, where they're going over where the tapes were found, all the police searches and the search party. They have photographs of people out on search parties looking for them. And then we have news footage of how the search has been called off. We're no longer looking for the people, but they are still missing and presumed dead. Then the documentary goes into the legend of the Blair Witch. They start at the Salem witch trials, but then they talk to a historian for Burkittsville, and he talks about the Blair Witch and who they believe had kidnapped kids and taken them into the woods and brainwashed them. We have an incident that is recalled by the historian where a girl was in 2 feet of water and 11 people were around her, and she seems to have been grabbed and she just disappeared in the water. No one knew where she was. With so many people around her, it was like magically she disappeared. The body was never found, but then for a whole week, little sticks like we've seen in the movie, little figurine sticks, were seen floating down the water. That made the town believe that the water was cursed. Yeah. Then we get to the tragedy of Mr. Park, where he apparently kidnapped 7 children because he heard a voice of a woman telling him to do it. We have footage of him in the courtroom, and he's being asked by somebody, Mr. Park, the voice you heard, could it have been the Blair Witch? And he goes, I'm not sure, but it could be. I mean, I don't know, but it's just a voice of a woman that was telling me to do it. Then they covered how the footage was found. Do you know any of this?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
this is awesome.
This sets up the lore of the movie, that the footage of the films were found buried at the site of a 100-year-old house. There's like a little stone wall that surrounded the house, and they were dug up under the stone. And when the stones were found, they look like they haven't been moved in that whole 100 years. And they bring in a forensics expert that said if someone were to fake this, they would have to have had surgical expertise to remove the rocks, put the tapes in, and put them back and make it look like they hadn't been touched in years.
So what you're saying is it's a time-traveling time capsule.
Right. That is a theory that I believe that the sequels go into a little bit, that they got stuck back in time and they buried the footage so it could be found later. But this right here is the first time that the time travel theory ever comes up. They also bring in a witch that talks about witchcraft. He's a male witch talking about witchcraft. And
so warlock or a witch?
He calls himself a witch.
Okay.
He is a male witch. He never says the term warlock. And he talks about supernatural things and how witches aren't necessarily evil and stuff like that. But they interview people in this documentary that are skeptics and some that believe that it's not possible to have faked that evidence. And they kind of get both point of view of whether or not it was a hoax. And then that ends with saying that the people are still missing. And if you would like to watch the footage that they shot, it can be seen in theaters starting July 16th.
And now it begs the question of, would this movie have done so well had they not come out with that Curse of the Blair Witch documentary beforehand?
Right, because even in the movie here we're going to cover, there's a character that says, oh yeah, I heard about the Blair Witch on a documentary. And it just seems to give it more cred. People are like, oh yeah, she saw the documentary too. And whether or not, because it was TV, it was not like a lot of people had DVRs back then, or you couldn't just like download it, right? A lot of that spread word of mouth. Like, hey, there was a documentary about this. It's true. And so
that's where my friend had told me about it.
Right.
So it was like telephone. And I had to believe everything that she told me.
All right, so now we're going to go through the plot of the movie for a little bit before we talk about our theories, I think, towards the end of the movie. But it starts in October 1994, where 3 film students disappeared in the woods near Burkensville, Maryland, shooting a documentary. That's a quote. It says a year later, their footage was found. We start the movie with Heather. She is with Josh, who has gotten some film equipment. He borrowed for the whole weekend. They talk about how they have to go pick up Mike. He's a little late, but Heather wants to charge the cameras so they don't run out of battery when they're going. Josh and Heather go meet Mike for the first time, and they show them in the car where she says that they have enough energy saved for the batteries to fuel a small country for a month.
Which later comes when they're off in the woods and lost.
Yes.
I'm jumping ahead, but
yeah,
it totally makes sense. Okay, she's already mentioned that they have a lot of battery powers, so it made sense that they could keep running the cameras.
Yeah, it set it up well.
Yeah.
They go to have lunch. They interview a waitress if she's heard about the Blair Witch, and all she remembers is that her sister went to Blair High School, so she didn't know if that counted.
Now, did she do the scene with the cemetery before interviewing the locals?
Well, they cut it afterward.
Okay. I thought that was a great opening.
Right.
Like documentary voice Heather giving this opening scene with the...
They do that. Well, first,
the cemetery.
Yeah, they eat lunch. Then they go to the graveyard.
Oh, that's what it was.
You're
okay.
right. So
they
that
went
is next.
to the restaurant.
Yeah, so she goes there. They're at a gravesite, and they point out that in the 1940s, a lot of children have passed away, but no one remembers anything supernatural about it. But she shows different tombstones that are all about little kids that died in the...
Yeah, 1940.
Right.
Sends such a great documentary voice by Heather.
Right. And it's interesting.
I thought it was great.
Every time there's footage in black and white, at least in all this part, the purpose is for the documentary. All the coloring is for behind the scenes of how the documentary was filmed. So this is why they have 2 cameras. So right after this, they go to interview the townspeople. And they ask the man in the store, you see it in color, if he knows about the Blair Witch. He says he does. And she asks, can I get permission to film you about this? Then they cut to him in black and white.
That makes sense now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And the black and white camera had a much better lens. They were trying to figure it out in the car, talking about metric versus standard. Yeah. And it was...
Right. It's funny, yeah.
It's fun to watch.
Because Mike didn't understand that there was both on there. He's like, there's metric on there. She's like, yeah, but there's also feet. He goes, oh, well, the metric is in white. It stands out more. So he's measuring it all in metric.
The feet are brown or something like that.
Right. So that man from the store talks about how Mr. Parr, so here he says Parr. I swear in the documentary they said Park.
Oh, that was the homicidal maniac that comes up later.
Okay, right.
I think I thought it was Mr. Parr.
I thought they were supposed to be the same guy.
Parr.
Right, I thought they were supposed to be the same guy.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
And so he says that one day he comes down, he says he was finished or something, and when the authorities went up to there, they found the bodies of 7 kids, one at a time. And then he talks about a woman named Mary Brown, who was seen in the community as a crazy person.
Now, I loved these interviews with the locals. I thought they were really well done, and as you mentioned, they cut between the 2 cameras sometimes.
Right.
I particularly did like Mary Brown, but there's also a lady with a child.
Yeah.
And I thought there was some interesting imagery there. The child is picking his nose and eats his booger.
Well, it's a girl.
Like in the middle. Oh, the little girl.
And the reason I know that was because there's an interview of them now where she's all grown up.
Oh,
right.
And she's the child that was there.
Yeah, that get them to meet them at the same spot they filmed it, and they interview them at the same spot, but decades later, which is pretty neat.
Oh, that is neat. So then later, when Heather's talking to the mother some more, she covers the mother's mouth when she starts talking about the Blair Witch. And I was like, oh, that's good imagery. And then the little child's like, she's like, no, no, no.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Like,
yeah, she
don't
keeps
talk
covering her
about
mouth. It was awesome. I think it really sold the shot. It seemed authentic of the kid. Like the kid was scared about the things her mother was talking about. And I don't see how it could be scripted. It looks so authentic.
It was really well done.
Because it's a little kid.
And I'm wondering if they had to do several takes with the mom and the girl.
Maybe.
But it turned out really well.
Right. And then besides that one, there's another man who says it was an old tale that his grandma used to say. Tell the kids, like, hey, if you're up late, you're walking around, the Blair Witch will come and get you. It was a whole tale that kept them behaving. Then they go to Mary Brown's house. They were told that they would find an American flag on her window, and that's how they know her. She comes out, and she talks about a fishing trip she had with her dad, and how there was a present nearby that she felt grab her, and then she saw a woman wearing a shawl that was covered in horse fur. And then they discuss on the way out of the interview that Mary Brown sees herself as a historian and as a scientist, and she's publishing her own books about the things.
I liked Mary Brown's character.
Yeah.
It reminds me of my hometown where I'm from, where there's just this like weirdness and storytelling, which I got from a lot of the people that I would talk to as a kid. It's just she comes out, she's wearing a rosary around her neck,
right,
and it looked like she was holding a Bible, like trying to like keep away something. Right. And then it was just the bizarreness of her story and the weirdness of her character made me feel like home.
So then they stay in a hotel, and they say they're going to have a relaxing night because the next day is going to be more work because they're going to have to be hiking with film equipment. And they said they need to relax. The boys have alcohol, and Heather eventually takes a drink, and she jokes asking if any of them have any weed, but they don't. Then the next morning, they drive out to the woods, and the first 2 people they run into, these 2 fishermen, there's a young guy that says it's a myth, and the older guy says, damn kids will never learn. And I think he's referring to these film students here that are going out and tempting fate by looking for evidence of the witch, although they're talking about the story about the kids that were abducted before. But they get their permission to film it, and then that's where we see them again switch to black and white to talk about it. They tell a story about a little girl named Robin Weaver who disappeared in the woods. 3 days later, appeared on her grandmother's porch and talked about a woman whose feet never touched the ground. And the old man believes that the area is haunted, and the young guy thinks he's full of shit, which is kind of funny. Then we see them grab their packs, and they start hiking on their way to Coffin Rock. And when they do get to Coffin Rock, she reads from a book about 5 men that were tortured. Their hands and their feet were tied to each other. So one man's hands would be tied to the other's feet, and all 5 of them wrapped around, and later their organs were removed. And when the authorities found them, there were vultures around, but the bodies had gone missing. So I'm guessing the organs were left, or they wouldn't have known this.
I don't know. But
right.
I did kind of catch that these interviews and the fact that their first stop on this hike is at Coffin Rock with this additional horror story.
Right.
It's a very good build to the beginning of the movie. We're talking about local horror stories. We're talking about another horror story that happened here at Coffin Rock. It's definitely setting the scene for the movie.
Right. And then we have them where they're camping that night. So their first night out there in the woods. Heather's having trouble with the tent. It's raining, so they can't build a fire. They joke about why she should have more experience putting up a tent. She jokes that she's never set up a tent for 3 people because she doesn't normally go camping with 2 men, if you know what I mean. I think it's kind of funny. The next morning, Josh says he heard a noise during the night, and we find out that Heather sleeps like a rock, and she could sleep through anything and would never be woken up, which I think sets up for a lot of this. Josh says it could have been an owl, or it could have been someone crackling, and Mike adds that if he heard crackling, he would have shit his pants. Then we get a scene where they're looking at the map. Mike accuses Heather of not knowing how to use the map, and Heather admits that they were lost for a brief amount of time, but they're back on track now.
And I think some fundamental fears are starting to come out.
Yeah.
About just getting lost in the woods, and that's pretty frightening, I think, for anybody. I also noticed the group later references Gilligan's Island.
They do.
And I think they were even singing this theme song at one point, one of the guys. And it made me think, like, okay, so how many people actually get lost and how many people are dying in the woods? And so I found survivaldispatch.com.
Okay.
And it had some statistics on there. It said in just Yosemite, the park out in California alone, 158 people die per year being lost in the wilderness.
That's insane.
And that's only like 3.3% of the total number, which is insane how many people are like actually get lost and die. And you see it in the news, but you never think the magnitude of it.
Sure.
And they also said an additional 1,396 of those lost are found injured. Okay. So the whole goal of the site is to rescue those people. But there's definitely that fear. There's definitely numbers showing the magnitude of the impact. So I would be scared if I was in this group.
Yeah, totally. So we have a fun scene where Heather says she's pretty happy with how their little Mikey is doing with the project. He's actually turned out to be a really good resource. We have Josh asking her if she believes the witch is real or not, and she says she just isn't sure yet. And then we get this weird scene where they're filming Mike's chest hair, and they're naming states or countries that they can see. Like, oh, there's
it's splotchy.
Yeah, it's splotchy, and they're saying they can see different shapes of countries in his chest hair, which is hilarious. They find their first dead animal of the movie. It's a dead mouse, and they want to know who killed it. And they're like, it could be a witch, and I think Mike is the one that yells. I think it was God. We have a scene where Heather's trying to pee, and they won't stop recording her because they're being jerks. She's like, guys, I really got to go. Please stop recording me. She's out in the distance trying to pee. Heather says they're about 90 minutes from the cemetery, and we see that the guys are starting to doubt that she knows where she's going at all.
They're trying to find the cemetery. They didn't really elaborate on what was going on there, but it made me wonder at the time that I was watching it, whose dead bodies are going to be there? Is that their ultimate, is that where the climax of the movie is going to be? But it's very mysterious.
I know. I tried to think about it for a while. They find what they do here in a minute, find it. And it's these formation of 7 piles of rocks. When they find it, they find these 7 piles of rocks. And I think it's supposed to be where the 7 kids were found that Mr. Parr had buried. Even though they removed the bodies, I think they put the rock formations back. It's weird though, right?
That's the first piles of rock that they found, right? Because it seemed like they kept appearing. Oh, you're right.
This is the cemetery.
Time
the cemetery that they're walking to, right? So the car is point A, right? Let's call car point A. They go out to Coffin Rock, which is point B. Then they go to the cemetery, which is point C. Right?
Those were the rocks.
Those are the rocks that they found, right?
I didn't make that connection. You're
now,
right.
One of them, I think it was Josh, knocks over one of the piles of rocks, and she says, how could you do that? It's really like sacrilege. So she puts it back up there, and they end up camping that night. The only reason I think that is there's 7 piles of rocks, and we had those 7 kids earlier.
That's really interesting. And they mentioned how Mary Brown brought up the fact that there were piles of rocks, so she knew something about that. The other thing that happened there is she had mentioned Mary Brown talked about, I think, Genesis. So I looked it up, and there's in Genesis in the Bible, there's a book, Genesis, that says this pile of rocks and this rock set on end will remind us of our agreement. I will never go past this pile to hurt you, and you must never come to my side of them to hurt me. And it made me wonder if like those piles of rock were some type of a barrier. And I was always wondering, okay, is there going to be a witch or something that can't get beyond like this invisible barrier created
like
by
they
this
might
pile
have been
of
safe.
Rocks? Yeah, I don't know.
They might have been
really
safe
bizarre.
if they stayed in there.
Yeah,
that could be it. So they end up camping near those piles of rocks, and they film there again the next day. They make a reference to Deliverance when they're talking about getting out of there.
There were noises in the dark when they were camping that night.
Yeah.
And you could hear, like, this rock noise clink, clink, clink.
Yeah.
So they wake up in the morning and they find more piles of rocks around the tent.
Oh, that hasn't happened yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they're walking now back to the car. And Mike doesn't understand at all how they're going a straighter line, right? She says, we had to go around in a curve to get here. So they went from the car, which is point A, to Coffin Rock, which is point B. Then they went from point B to the graveyard, which is point C. So this is our triangle. So now, if they want to go straight from point C to point A, it's a straight line and it'll be quicker. But Mike would have been happier if they went back to point B, because he would have known, okay, well, this is where we started, and then gone to the car from there. But because she's doing this hypotenuse in this triangle to get them back quicker, Mike thinks it's wrong. He can't get this concept of a triangle in his head. This is a quicker way back, and therefore doubts her the whole time. And because he can't read this map, he believes that she can't read this map. And I find this is such a character flaw with Mike. Now, in the end, I would say I don't like any of these characters. They're very unlikable. And I would say that I liked Heather the longest, but towards the end, I don't like her either.
Why don't you like the characters?
Well, Mike, right off the bat, he just doesn't trust. Her job here in this trek is, obviously she's the director, right? She's in charge of reading this map. And just because he can't do the skill that is not his job, he believes that she can't possibly do it. I don't know if that's because she's a woman and he can't handle the fact that he's not good at something that she is good at, or he just really can't believe that anybody can be better at something than he is. But that drove me nuts with him. Later, Josh will not stop rubbing in her face what it's like to be filmed and causes her to cry because he's mad that they're lost. He won't stop filming them. We get the point. He's tired of being filmed. They just want to get out of there. Now she, when she breaks down crying, says the only reason she's still filming, which is a complaint of a lot of found footage movies. Like, why are they still filming? They're in danger. Why are they still filming? She says it's all she has left. The only thing keeping her sane anymore is the fact that she is still filming them. It's the only thing that keeps her going. Her documentary. The reason she went there, if she gives up on the documentary, then she has to admit that it was all for nothing. She might lose her sanity that way. So that's why I don't like Josh. I know I wrote down later why I don't like her, but I can't think of it right now.
Yeah, it's okay. I was just curious because these characters are a bit stubborn and they fight a lot. There was a time later where you were talking about Josh with the camera.
Yeah.
And this is much later when they're lost in the woods even more. And he says, I see why you like this video camera so much. It's not quite reality.
Yeah.
No, but just totally like a filtered reality. It's like you can pretend everything's not quite the way it is. I thought that was a really good quote.
Sure.
It sort of shows the art side of it, but it also gets to the point about Heather's got this art that she can express herself with still, even though they're lost in the woods.
Yeah, and then Mike, a little bit more, he keeps complaining that they're in the middle of the woods, so they must be lost. But he knew they were going in the woods to film. The fact that they're in the woods doesn't mean they're lost, because that's where they were supposed to be. But just because he can't read that map, he keeps saying, well, if we weren't lost, we wouldn't be in the middle of the fucking woods. I'm like, yes, you would, because that's where you signed up to go. It's not like mapped out trails. It's not like you're going to follow this trail the whole time to get to these things. They're in the middle of the woods.
They did have a compass too.
They did. And then when they busted out, so she goes, I bought the compass. It's mine. And I'm like, yes, she wants to maintain control, but that seemed kind of childish, right? But she keeps coming with good plans. A good survival tip is to follow the river. Eventually, it's got to lead somewhere. You know you're going in one direction, but they don't like that plan. So they decide to go south, and I don't know how that one fails, because they end up going to the same place. Now, theoretically, what could happen is someone could have metal on them that is attracting that compass, right? So maybe it's the film equipment, but no matter what direction you go when you're holding that compass, if the film equipment is attracting that compass and the north is pointing to you because it's on your back, then no matter which way you go, it will always look like you're going south. So this could be how they wrapped around in a circle.
Yeah.
Now, I remember reading when I was younger, and when you learn about compasses and stuff like that for scouting, that if you are going through the woods, the reason people make circles is because a person is more likely to choose right over left when having to make a decision the same way every time. So if you get to a split and you're like, oh, should I go to the right of this tree or the left of this tree? And you always choose right, eventually you're making this big loop.
What if you're left-handed?
Well, no, I'm saying it's up to you. I know it's like, I think each individual person.
Left-hander
I'm not saying that I
left?
just chose right. I'm just saying that I would probably do it. It's up to the individual person. But a person that chooses right over left or left over right will probably do that more often than not, and therefore not go in a straight line.
You made a good point about following the stream. That was something else that I saw on survivaldispatch.com, that lost individuals who try to reorient themselves, almost half, I think 42% is what it says, follow trails, roads, or streams intending to find civilization. Because that makes sense. I mean,
Right.
most cities and towns, especially before we had adequate plumbing and stuff, they had to focus around these streams and rivers. So
Right.
eventually you should find something. But yeah, that was a very creepy scene when they sort of went in a circle all day long, wound up back at the same spot on that stream.
Right.
And they had the compass, and they were heading south all day, according to what Heather said.
Right. They keep camping, and like you said earlier, there's one night they wake up, there's 3 formations of rocks equidistant around their tent.
3.
Right.
For 3 people.
Sure.
Ah.
Yeah, maybe. And they're thinking, Josh is like, well, maybe they were there before. She goes, you think we just happened to accidentally put our tent in the middle of 3 rock formations? I definitely didn't see them the day before. Right after this is where Heather notices the map is gone. Josh and her argue about it. She says that she gave Josh the map, and he claims that he gave the map back. She says, if you'd given it back, it'd be in this pocket. I never take it out of this pocket. And he says, I wouldn't have gone into your pocket while you were asleep to do it. It doesn't make sense. They never agree on who still has the map, right?
And Heather already said that she's a very sound sleeper, basically.
Yes.
At that night, when those rock piles appeared, they heard noises in the dark. And at one point, they turned on the camera, and you could hear the rocks clinking outside the tent. So they just kind of appeared, but then there's also these noises that kind of correspond with what happened in the morning.
Right. At this point, Josh lays down by a tree. He says he's given up. They should go on without them. And when they find help, they should just send help back. Heather keeps going on and on about this is America, and it's impossible for people to get lost in America because it's so colonized everywhere. But I mean, you're in a wooded area. It's a massive wooded area. I mean, it's not like there's towns everywhere. But it's interesting. She's going to die on this hill. Like, hey, this is America. You can't get lost in America, which is funny. They go to across the water, and then Mike starts laughing at Heather because her shoes are wet. She's mad at them for laughing at her, and they're saying they're laughing at the situation because all of their shoes are wet. Mike then confesses to kicking the map down the creek because he found it useless. They lose it. Heather's like, look, just because you couldn't read the map doesn't mean I couldn't read the map, and you're a fucking asshole, which he is. Like, what an idiot. They had a map. They could have used it to get out. Because he didn't know how to read the map, he threw it away, which is so stupid. And I think I like Mike the least out of everybody. But not that in the end, I don't think I like any of them. But I definitely might like Mike the least.
Now, it was around this time, I think just before this, that the strange stick artwork started appearing around in the
right
woods.
after it.
And this also built up to Josh and Mike not really liking Heather filming because she was obsessed with filming the stick artwork. And they were trying to get her to go, but she wouldn't want to go.
Yeah. Yes. And that is, thank you for reminding me, because I did write it down. I wrote, this is what finally makes me not like Heather. Yes, she has a good plan, but she refuses to stop filming when the group is in distress. And what can be seen often as a problem in found footage films is why people ask, why are you still filming? But for her, she's still filming because she wants to get in this documentary. But the group is like, put up the camera. She lies to the group saying, I'm putting the camera away. But she's not putting the camera away. She's still filming. Or we wouldn't see it, right? Because none of this is just like a real movie. There's no camera. We're just watching these people. She's obsessed with it. And she's lying to the group about it. And it's frustrating. But yeah, they come across those figures. That night, when they're camping, Josh asks that they not make a fire because the stuff only started happening when they started making a fire. And then Mike asks Heather to also turn off the light for the camera, and she agrees, and we get some dark footage. And then in the middle of the night, Heather's getting dressed, and she's asking them to get the cameras ready. They go outside, and they yell for Heather to follow, but her boots aren't laced yet, so she's trying to run out of the distance. They see a figure out there. She's like, what the hell is that? We get different shots of cameras, and it sounds like a baby is screaming out there. Josh doesn't believe it's a baby, but Mike thinks it is. Heather says that they don't hear anything anymore, so they should just go back. But they ran quite a bit. I'm surprised they made it back to their tent.
Yeah, they've already been lost. Now they got to make it back in the dark to their tent.
Now, when they do get back to the tent, one of their packs is missing. Another one of their packs is covered in slime, which was different.
That was Josh's stuff.
That went missing?
Yeah, it was like strewn about, and the water canteen was covered in slime.
Josh tries to grab the camera from her at this point, and she bites him. And I thought that was childish. Josh says if she bites him again, he's going to leave her in the woods to die. She says that if he comes after the camera again, she's going to bite her again. And this just reminds me of when my children were 5, right? But she's a grown woman, and I get that it's her property they're trying to take, but I don't know, it just seemed weird to bite in this moment.
As intelligent adults, none of these characters are really, like, I would think that all of them would collectively come together, have a discussion, figure it out, but they never do that. They're just bickering the whole time.
Right. They go to cross the stream. Shortly after that, Josh is taking a break, and Mike is defending the break. He's saying that Josh is losing it. He just needs 5 minutes. And Josh is asking if anybody has a cigarette, but they all ran out days ago. Later, before nightfall, Josh doesn't want to set up camp, but Heather says they have to. The group thinks that even going south in the woods could go on forever, but Heather again says that they can't because this is America. Like, it can't go on forever. And she's right, but can it go on longer than you can survive with no food? And then Mike and Josh start singing the national anthem, kind of to make fun of her for her, "This is America," which I thought was pretty funny.
And they start a conversation about food.
Yes.
Because I think they're hungry. One of the guys says, "I've got a cheeseburger in my back pocket." And they start talking about their mom's mashed potatoes.
Right. This is where they wind up to the same trees they were at earlier. That was around a lake, this fallen tree. Heather doesn't want to believe it's the same tree, but eventually starts crying because they all believe they've made it back to the same spot. They can't believe it's possible. It gets darker, and no one wants to talk to Heather anymore.
That's when they start talking about the food.
Right.
As soon as it starts getting dark.
Yeah, and then when he's filming her, and he just keeps filming her until she's crying, mocking her the whole time. He says something weird where he's like, "Well, we're here to make movies, so let's make a movie." And I don't know if it could be read this way or not, but her response of like, "Fuck you," when she was asking, "What do you want to do?" I can't tell. Was he like joking about making a porno?
I thought that too. Like,
okay.
Was he talking because he was talking almost sexually to her about making a movie?
That's what I thought. And that's why she's like, "Fuck you."
It was totally mocking her more about the camera too.
Right. And I know that's a common trope in found footage movies, where a lot of found footage movies will have the guy be like, "Hey, we got this camera here. Let's make an adult film." I think it comes up a lot in found footage. So I was just interesting, like, if it could be read that way. Mike jumps in to ask them to stop fighting. Mike volunteers to do the first watch as they can't because he believes that they should have someone looking out while they're sleeping. And that's the first time I feel like Mike has actually been the adult. He's the one with a good plan. That's the other two are losing it right now.
So Mike did the first watch?
Right.
Okay. Now, at some point, Josh goes out to do the watch because in the morning he's gone.
Right. Yeah.
So I thought it was Josh that did the first watch, but is it Mike?
I think Mike does the first one, but when they wake up in the morning, sure. So the next morning, Josh is missing. Mike is asking her to calm down, but she just keeps screaming louder. Then Mike joins in screaming, looking for Josh. She's mad because they're never supposed to go more than earshot distance away from each other. So they should always be able to hear each other when they go out there. But Mike says maybe he ran off, but Heather points out that he left all this stuff. Why would he have left us and left all this stuff? It doesn't make sense.
I thought it was interesting that Josh's stuff is thrown about a previous night, and then he's gone now.
Right. If I were to theorize if the witch is real, why she would have targeted Josh, I think it's because Josh is the one that knocked over the gravestone, the pile of rocks, carelessly. Heather's the one that set it back up. I think he disrespected them, and maybe that's why he was the first target.
Also, if he knocked over those piles of rocks from the Genesis 31,
he's no longer protected.
He's no longer protected.
So it takes them a while to decide whether to move on without Josh, but they do. And Heather asks Mike, "Which way do you want to go? We tried south, it didn't work." And he says, "Which one was the wicked witch? Was it east or west?" And she said that the west was the bad one. And he goes, "Okay, well, then let's go east." But I'd like to point out in that movie, Wicked Witch of the East was smashed by the house in the beginning, and that's why we don't know that she's evil, but she just happens to be the one that died.
Wasn't the Good Witch of the North?
And south.
Maybe they should have gone north or
no, but northwood, I think they knew that the car was
the other direction.
South.
So, yeah, they
southwest or whatever. Like they were going, or southeast, right? They were trying to go to that direction. But either way, they failed. But I don't know. I just thought it was interesting.
I don't think the Munchkins rejoiced.
That night they talk about ice cream pie and what they like to do at the weekends. Heather jokes that she used to love going out into the woods and hiking on the weekends. Later they're sleeping and they hear screams. They jump up. They think it's Josh, so they pop out of the tents. Mike screams for Josh, and it sounds like Josh is telling him where to go. The next morning, Heather walks out of the tent, and there's a bunch of branch structures outside of the tent.
Branch artwork is back.
Yeah.
And it's around the tent. Now, I did like the cinematography that night.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool. They had flashlights and a lot of like black, dark, and infrared with the camera. It reminded me of filming with that home camera in the early 2000s.
Yeah, exactly. We get a scene where Heather's saying that she's very tired, very hungry, very scared. We see Heather spinning in circles. Mike is just sitting down, staring off in the distance. We have a scene where Mike is eating a dry leaf.
They're very disheartened and exhausted looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get the scene that is probably the most parodied scene in horror history, where she holds the camera really close to her face. We only see her head, nose, and above. She's crying to the camera, saying she apologizes to everybody. It's really her fault. She's the one that brought them out here. It was their project. And she's just crying. It's this long, ongoing scene where she's asking for forgiveness. And it has been done so much in other movies. Like, people have joked around it, filming it in a lot of other movies.
That was an incredible scene. Yeah, that was definitely my favorite scene in the movie, or in cinema in general.
Yeah.
It's really well done. I did want to bring up that there was a bundle of sticks that Heather found that had a piece of Josh's flannel on it.
Oh, okay.
It was in the front of the tent, and it looked like a piece of his clothing, but we didn't find that out until later, until she finds another bundle with a piece of Josh's flannel on it and what appear to be body parts.
Yeah, I thought it was dead animals. There's a lot of blood in it.
I don't know. That flannel was that material. Was the same shirt that Josh had been wearing.
All right, so that night they hear screams again. Mike asks if she's ready. She's like, I got to get on my jeans or something like that. And then they run out and they come across a house. At that house, they start calling for Josh, and Mike is going way faster than her. She keeps losing him very quickly, asking him to slow down, but he's asking her to speed up.
Now, Mike says that can't be him, but he's the one pursuing. They keep hearing this voice in the distance.
Right.
They think it's Josh, so they keep pursuing it. There were a couple of things that happened before this to Mike and Heather. I thought it was interesting that Heather, after she found that creepy bundle of sticks with the body parts and such, she didn't talk to Mike about it, but she was clearly freaking out. And then Mike found some cigarettes in the bottom of his bag.
He said he had them at the bottom.
At this point, I don't think he was hiding them intentionally. I think he just found it. And just to see them enjoy some simple pleasure here. Right. Because they set the scene as so disheartening. Heather's freaking out. She's seeing things. She's not even talking to Mike about them. I thought that was really good to build up towards this climax that's about to happen.
Right. In the house, as Mike's running around, he yells out, I'm going upstairs. We see that the walls are covered in what looks like little kid handprints, maybe blood, maybe paint. When Heather finally catches up, Mike yells that he hears him downstairs now, and he starts running back downstairs. He yells out, I hear him downstairs, even though Heather's right there. It's interesting, right? I'm going to go why later. Heather yells, Mike, wait for me, but he yells, hurry up. They get downstairs. There's some weird symbols on the wall. Mike seems to cry Josh very quietly before his camera hits the floor. Heather keeps screaming for Mike, and we cut to her on the first floor because we see the same symbols. Then she takes the stairs down to the basement, screaming for Mike hysterically.
She says, Mike, please. Now, at one point, it was very clear that this male voice in the distance called out Mike. I could hear. I turned up the audio all the way because I wanted to hear what those noises were in the distance. And at one point, there was an audible sound that sounded like Josh that said very clearly Mike.
Right. She goes down the stairs to the basement. She sees Mike is standing in the corner. She keeps screaming his name. Then it sounds like she's hit from behind. She hits the floor. The camera hits the floor. And then the footage stops and the credits roll. Now, we might not have brought it up, but one of the guys that was talking about Mr. Parr said that Mr. Parr would take 2 kids at a time, put one kid in a corner because he couldn't handle the eyes on him, is what he said. And he would kill one kid while the other kid couldn't look, and then went for the other kid to look. So that comment was set up for this ending where we see Mike in the corner and Heather killed first, and then we don't see what happens to Mike, but we assume he dies.
I think it's interesting how things sort of come to full circle with the local stories from the beginning here, with the child handprints, as you mentioned, on the walls, and the fact that Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't make that connection, but
Yeah.
they die without seeing each other, and they don't see the killer, and it's very
And we never do
similar
either.
to the Mr. Parr story.
So I want to jump into different theories out there. The first theory, obviously, is there is a witch, right? And then the witch is going around messing with them because they tempted fate or were disrespecting her by filming it. I don't know. But that's definitely a theory. There is another theory that local people are just messing with them. And as they're going along, they're trying to teach them a lesson to not disrespect our lore or legend. You're kind of making fun of us by doing that. Then there's a theory that I first heard from Film Theory on YouTube by Matt Pat. And he presents the theory that the two guys were messing with her the whole time and decided to kill her. And they only went on this trip because they wanted to kill her. And they made it look like this whole witch thing was happening. And some of the evidence that he had is that everything that happened that we ever saw could have been done by a human. The stick figures, the pile of rocks could have been done by a human. She at one point says that she could sleep through anything. So they could have been getting out of the tent and setting up these rock formations.
So by a human, you mean not supernatural?
Right. I mean that the other two guys could have woke up while she's asleep and set up everything they did this whole time. Everything that could have happened could have happened. It's an interesting theory. Then the thing that really worked for me in this theory is that when they're in the house and he's running out and Heather's right next to him, he's like, I'm running upstairs. He's not telling Heather this, but he's telling Josh this. And the reason he threw away the map was because they wanted to lead her to this house and he can make that happen. Josh went ahead to the house first, and then Mike led her to this house so that when he's running around in the house, he's saying, hey, we're going upstairs, to tell Josh we're going upstairs. Then when Josh isn't up there, hey, we're going downstairs. Oh, we're going in the basement. And he's not telling Heather this. He's telling Josh this. So when he gets down and hides in the corner, which is freaking Heather out because of all the lore and everything that they've led her to believe, that Josh is able to come out of the corner and hit her over the head and kill her and then make it look like they were killed by this witch.
So many interesting ideas there. But I feel like, and the whole thing, Josh could have set up those bundles of sticks with the material that looked like his flannel and things like that. But still, I felt like they were all lost in the woods.
Yeah.
So that's hard to... hard for me to buy into that.
It's a fun theory if you're only looking at the first film, right? If you look at this Curse of the Blair Witch documentary that came out first, and you look at some of the sequels, they do straight out show you that there's a witch in the sequels.
Is he furry, like with horse hair, just like Mary Brown?
We can cover later. And then they also do dive into the time travel aspect more. So if you're looking at just this movie alone, then sure. It is possible this theory is right. But the later movies have a witch. So a lot of people don't like that the movie would just flat out tell you, because the way this was left ambiguously, you kind of imagine what was going on. You come up with your own story. But then when sequel comes out and says, oh, it's definitely a witch, a lot of people think it's not as fun that way. I did want to say that the movie ended up grossing $248 million in the box office, $248.6 million. Wow. Right? And if the total budget they spent on it after getting back and everything was $750,000, it made a killing. I think percentage-wise, it was eventually beat out by Paranormal Activity, which was filmed very, very cheaply as well and made a massive profit. But I would say that while other movies beforehand have done this found footage concept, this is the one that brought it to the mainstream. Like after this, found footage was everywhere. And some of my favorites are Wreck, Cloverfield, Paranormal Activity, VHS. And I'm told a really good one that I haven't seen yet is Lake Mungo, which is on my to-watch list. So I'm excited about that.
It's like a video that goes viral now, and everybody tries to mimic it.
Yeah, exactly.
No Chick-fil-A sauce girl.
I don't know this one.
That's a good one.
The one I know right now is I'm looking for a man in finance. 6'5", blue eyes, trust fund. Have you heard this one?
No.
All right, back to the movies. Anything else you want to say about the movie?
I think I got everything.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, no, you're good. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, we're at Nightmare Echoes Pod. If you would like to email us with movie suggestions you'd like to hear, nightmareechoespod@gmail.com. We have new episodes every Monday. Please leave us a 5-star review if you like hearing what you heard. All right, bye.